Welcome to the Sacred Womb Podcast, womb-centered wisdom for the arc of womanhood, with me, your host, Melanie Swan. Hello, lovely ladies, and welcome back to this episode that's all about healing emotionally and spiritually after an abortion. So I want to set up the context for this because it's so important. I'm coming from a place of sharing this with love, with compassion, with loads of understanding, and with no judgment. It's non-religious, it's non-dogmatic, and the most important thing when we're thinking about this, even just thinking about this, is working in an environment of respect for choice, for each and every single woman's choice to have a baby or not to have a baby. Whatever we want to do with our bodies is our choice. So that's what pro-choice means to me. And so I really thought that was very important to set up because there is a lot of judgment in our culture and it doesn't do anyone any good, including the people judging. Because I see women struggling with this for years and years. And I only see people when they've tried like this and that and, you know, many things really. And I've just come to a place of absolute despair of like, I can't seem to come to peace with this is the common thread. So I'm going to talk you through some steps that work. And also I'm going to explain why they commonly don't work until we look at what the stuck themes are, work on the stuck theme, and then go through those other steps. So I'll just summarize them here. So I'm going to talk about identifying what's stuck, and then working with the stuck themes through your life and your soul's journey versus just trying to heal by focusing on healing the abortion. The steps I'm going to talk about to then have a look at to come to peace with oneself are communing with the spirit that didn't come through, recalibrating your body, grieving, and then the difference between forgiveness, which is bandied around a lot and can be very confusing and really stick the process. So the difference between forgiveness and self-compassion and coming to peace, which is just more realistic. And then energizing your womb center. And then in the blog post, I've put further resources for you to have a look at. I've written a blog post on 3 ceremonies to heal after abortion. And yeah, any other links I will put in the blog post for you. And that is in the show notes. Okay. All right, so I'd recommend take your time with this podcast. Yes, you might be activated, so I just recommend you pause it when you need to, be really, really kind to yourself, and know that I'm just going to talk you through what genuinely works. And I know that often really, really helps women who are very confused as to why this won't move really. Okay. All right then. So here we go. Healing emotionally and spiritually after an abortion. Okie dokie. So stuff gets stuck when we've had an abortion and it just gets stuck. So that is where we need to start, because if we try and do the other steps before, it kind of half works, which means it doesn't work really. So the work we do at first is to really just tune into the body and feel into what is the belief about oneself that means we can't come to peace with what happened. So the most common one, 95% of the time, is that we've done something that's just unforgivable. We've taken a life. We're dreadful. We don't deserve to have a life. We've killed a baby. Those sorts of beliefs deep down, that's what makes an abortion kind of stick. When I say stick, it's mean we can't move forward. We can't come to peace with it. we're just like, keep going over it again. And not necessarily the decision, but this sense of feeling bad, being unforgivable, having taken someone's life, stays with us. And that is what needs working on. So once that's identified, we then take our eyes off it being healing after abortion and what's going on. We work with the theme that's actually active in the body and the psyche that's looping round, and that is usually that we're just unforgivable somehow. There might be different expressions of that, but that's what it really comes down to. So, then we have a look at this life. Is it rooted in this life? Well, okay, we've got the abortion as an expression of it. Sometimes there is perceived perpetration that happens when we are little. We might have pushed our sister or something and they ended up burning themselves and we got blamed for it, or we kind of we failed to stop our brother falling in the pond and he nearly drowned, and parents blamed us as well. So those sorts of things can stick in our psyche as that we've done something terrible, that we're terrible people, that we're unforgivable. And so we need to have a look at that in this life. It may or may not be there, but it's worth looking to be thorough. And then we have a look, and this is the really important point. We have a look in other lifetimes. Now, some people call them past lives. I just kind of call them other lives now, because I see our psyche as circular, not linear. It's a bit like a tree stump. If you cut that in half, you see all the rings. And I experience myself, anyway, as at the centre of that. And then there's all these ripples going outwards and coming back inwards of different realities that we exist on. And we need to look at those realities. So some people say it's quite metaphorical. Some say it's past lives or other lives. Really, to me, it doesn't matter that much, because we're going into our subconscious. And with the specific intention of having a look at why we think we're unforgivable. Okay, so when we go into that, why we think we're unforgivable, and I guide someone, by the way, I don't channel what has happened. That's not reliable. If somebody is offering to channel that, we don't get the whole picture. We might get some, it might move some affect, which is the emotion, the physicality of the emotion stored in the body. And so I don't and I won't do that, but I work with someone to guide them into a kind of state, a slightly altered state, where we can access our subconscious and our different expressions of self. It's really possible. It's not actually that hard, but you just need to be really focused about it and confident with it. And it happens. So we go into the other lifetimes, let's say, and we find the roots of feeling unforgivable there. And really, it is usually, again, 95% of the time, when we have hurt someone, when we've done something. And there can be all sorts of expressions of this, but we then feel, whatever narrative has gone on, whatever happened, whatever drove us to do that, needs uprooting, basically, and processing and understanding and reconsolidating. And then we can see how we feel about the abortion. It's often clears that sense of feeling unforgivable. Sometimes it's knitted into a multitude of things. So I don't also want to give you this kind of magic wand, one session or one meditation idea that you could just, it was that, and then poof, it's gone. I'm open to the fact that may happen, but often it's knitted into a few things. It depends where you're at, really. It depends how much therapeutic work you've done in this life. It just depends on a number of things. So I'm not trying to tell you it's overly complicated, but I'm also wanting to be realistic that it's not, no one's got a magic wand. If we had, we would just bloody use it, wouldn't we? So, yeah, that's what we need to do. We need to do that. And sometimes there's a bit of generational stuff as well. And I really want to be clear about this as well. When we have generational roots, say there are some generational roots, and it's pretty likely, given all the things that have happened about childbirth and stillbirth and backstreet abortions and all that kind of thing, it's likely that there are some generational roots. However, it's really an illusion to think that we're just carrying it for somebody else and it's not mine and we can just let it go. Again, if that worked, we'd all be doing it, but it doesn't work. I've tried, really, I have tried. And my psyche has wanted to go there sometimes and going, yeah, it's generational, yeah, but then do the generational work. And there's always a resonance in the soul's journey. So our soul is resonating at certain frequencies, and we do tend to land with lineages that are of a similar frequency, and so they amplify. So real root work is done through this life, the soul's journey, and through our generational lineages as well. It can take anything from a few sessions, let's say, to 6-8 months. It really depends on where you're at. But it's really important for me to be very realistic and to know that this doesn't happen by someone channeling it for you. I know that's kind of popular sometimes in some areas, and it can be helpful with certain things. But personally, I really don't think it's empowering, because we need to really face ourselves to really come to an understanding and come to peace with ourselves. Okay. So that's working with the stuck themes. So once we have done that root work and the sense of being unforgivable has pretty much dissipated, that's, the options as again were unforgivable, not deserving, unworthy, that sort of thing. Once the heat is taken out of it, it doesn't have to be completely dissolved. Once the heat is out of it, we can start this process. And the first process is communing with the spirit that didn't come through. Again, this is a process where we speak directly to the soul, not anyone channeling it for us, because we need that connection. We often need to know that soul is okay. And hand on heart, every person I have done this with, their spirit is okay. They're not harmed. And they often really chilled, actually. They say stuff like, oh, it's all right. Oh, no, yeah, I can wait. They either wait around. They say, oh, I can wait. And it's not attached to any particular lifetime. Because, of course, in spirit, we don't have the constraints or the structure of time. I know this might feel a little bit metaphysical, but it's what they say. It really is what they say. And often they're very understanding as well, and feeling that direct connection, getting that feeling from that spirit is often very, very relieving. And knowing that they're okay, and they're either going to hang around, or they might say like, oh, it's all right, I just went off somewhere else, or I'm totally okay and I understand. That's generally what they say. So I hope that brings some peace if you are thinking about really going deep with this. So yeah, that's communing with the spirit that didn't come through. Okay, next up we have recalibrating your body. So at conception, our maternal instinct gets activated, and there's some sort of alchemical response that prepares our body for gestation and for birth and for motherhood. And so that process is started, and if, say, there's an abortion at 6 weeks, 8 weeks, you've got 8 weeks worth of have preparation in the body. So that process has started, but then it gets kind of cut short in a way. So the process gets stuck in the body as well. So it's really helpful to acknowledge that. And again, do some really nice, deep, slow body work to allow for the completion of that, just somatically, of the nervous system, of any felt sense. And I know this might sound pretty metaphysical, but it is a very grounded process of just allowing the body to recognize something started but didn't complete, and to allow the completion of that. And that, again, feels really, really lovely. And it helps the actual physicality of the process come to a sense of real peace and completion. So next up, we have space to grieve. And it's important to remember that there is no time limit on this. However, if it keeps looping round, and this is something I've often seen, is grief that just keeps going and going and going. When it does that, it becomes like a trauma loop in itself. And that's when we need to get underneath it and have a look at what the stuck themes are. So if your grief feels like it is dissipating gradually over time, then that is the natural process of it. If it's looping round, we need to get underneath it. And you will know, hearing this, your body will know whether or not you're looping round or having an experience where it does lessen over time and does come to a sense of completion each time a wave comes. So I'm not going to say too much more about grief. I know that there's the different stages of grief and there's different guidance on grief, and that's pretty available to us. Personally, when I'm grieving, when I've experienced grief, I just let it do its thing. It feels like it's a force unto itself. And I just like to, I mean, it's a pretty strong experience. I wouldn't say but I try and just embrace the experience that it's like an energy coming through me that just feels like it's coming from the depths of my soul that just moves up and through. I prefer to just work with it as it comes in the moment and not try and cognitively understand it in certain stages, but I know that's helpful for some people as well. So just my guidance on this would be to just do whatever you need to do to be able to feel it and let the natural kind of, I want to say like wisdom of the grief really work with you, because it is a very powerful and primal and natural thing to occur. Okay, we're nearly there, just 2 more to go. I hope you're doing okay and taking good care of yourself as you listen to this. So the next one is self-compassion and coming to peace with what's happened versus forgiveness. Okay, so forgiveness is bandied around in the healing world, in the New Age healing world. And my experience of it is that forgiveness doesn't even really truly exist. We make it up and we tell each other well, all you need to do is forgive. And that's never worked for me. That doesn't work for any of the people I work with. I've talked to my colleagues about it. It's not even really a thing. What seems to be the reality of it is just really facing ourselves and coming to peace with ourselves about what happened. And this counts for anything, really. We don't need to forgive, in quotes, in order to heal at all, because forgiveness, in my experience, isn't really real. It's ourselves we need to come to peace with, whether that's in relation to the abortion, whether that's in relation to having abusive parents or abusive relationships. It's always ourselves that we feel terrible about. Like, why did we land with these parents? Why did I end up with that partner, we do blame ourselves underneath all of this, even though we might not feel it at the time. But deep down, that's what seems to occur. So self-compassion is really facing ourselves and also facing whatever we feel God is, whatever we feel core energy, universe, creator, whatever word you want to use, however you experience it, it's really helpful to come face to face within ourselves with that energy. And 100% of the time, there is no judgment from source energy, none, because it's just love. I want to really get that across to you. There is never any judgment from source, because we are source. Source is just experiencing itself. I'm just giving you my experience of this. I don't expect you to believe me, because we've all got to do our inner work to be able to get to that point and see for ourselves. Because there's been so much conditioning around this big flipping bearded man in the sky, or with a big judgment book. Whatever religion that is, there's a different version of that. And it goes in, it gets into our subconscious, and we hold it there. And so it's so healing to come face to face with self, with all we've experienced, not just the abortion, just the perpetration stuff that we perceive we've done as children and in the past lives as well. It's just so healing to really feel and experience that source and have absolutely no judgment and just love and compassion and presence. And there's just neutrality. It was just an experience. And that's what every single person comes to that I've worked with of their own connection. That's what I've come to experience from my own connection. My colleagues as well that I work with. And yeah, but we can only get there by doing it ourselves. We can only get the actual relief of that by coming to that point ourselves. Okay, so that's what I mean by self-compassion, meeting source versus forgiveness, because it just knocks out any need for that even existing. So yeah, I hope that bit was especially useful, because I really think that if we all knew that, we'd all move forward much more easily. Okay. And we've come to the last point. I hope you're all doing okay. And this is about energizing our womb center. So when there's been a medical procedure, whether that's like a direct procedure and an anesthetic or taking a pill, there are a few different options, then we need to re-energize our womb center. Also, because the time period when we've made that decision, building up to it, during, afterwards, has been probably really stressful, some sort of inner conflict. There's often a lack of support. Who do we tell, etc., etc. So there's been a stressful period and a very physical aspect to this as well, and a very spiritual aspect to this. So we need to help our womb center to re-energize, because we've often pulled away from it because we know, the pregnancy isn't going to happen. Maybe there's a medical procedure. Maybe that was painful. So we just, all the things that can happen, we do pull away. So to re-energize our womb center means to sit back in our womb center, to breathe back into it, to sit back into it, to really have the energy in there to help our cycle clear out debris. May that be physically, emotionally, or spiritually. And you can do that just by breathing back into your womb center, putting your hand on your heart and breathing love down to your womb center. And also not using menstrual products that are inside the yoni for a few months. If you do want to use them, it's really much better to let that blood flow out. And it does help clear out emotion and debris as well. So yeah, okay, that's energizing the womb center. We're going to go to further resources now. Okay, and lastly, there are further resources. I've listed them in my blog post. The blog post link is in the show notes if you're listening on any of the podcasting apps. And as I said at the beginning, I've written a free one on healing ceremonies to do after an abortion. Over time, I'm going to be adding to those resources as well. But I'll put those in as I see them. All right. I really hope that was extremely useful for you and made some sense, as if you have had that experience and it just won't come to completion, why it's not coming to completion, and some of the elements that you can do to move forwards. Because we need you. Like, every single woman is needed, every single one of you. And when we're disconnected from our wombs, we're disconnected from our intuition and our deepest wisdom. So I just want to say, we need you back. We really need you back. And I really mean that. I should send you loads and loads of love. And again, I hope it's useful. Please share this with all the women in your life, so that even if you think they've not had an abortion, they might have. So many women do. And I just want this information to get to people so that each and every woman that's struggling knows that there's a path forwards, that we don't have to suffer, and that they've not done this terrible thing and they've not harmed anybody. The spirits are always okay. Okay. All right then. Again, lots and lots of love, and I will see you soon.